Good evening, all. Welcome back to Carrow Road, just a few days after that game against QPR, and another entertaining encounter today. I really enjoyed this one. Norwich come out on top 1-0, maintain that lead at the top of the Championship table, and what feels nice is that they're at the halfway point. They turn towards home, 23 games under their belt, and they still sit 4 points clear at the top of the Championship now. There's a little bit of extra to that because Brentford's game was postponed for COVID reasons. They were supposed to play Bristol City, who weren't able to get the tests for their players. So they, like Bournemouth, do have a game in hand now, but this keeps them at arm's length, doesn't it? Swansea have actually moved up to second place. They won 2-1 against Watford. So in a way, that's sort of helps Norwich, keep Watford at a bit of a distance. So as it stands, they're 4 points clear of Swansea in second and 6 points clear of Brentford in third at the halfway point of the season. 2 defeats in 19 games. It's not been as smooth or as comprehensive as it could have been, or as Daniel Farke would have liked it to be. He just choked at the start of his Zoom call after the game that he thinks that closing stages of the game aged him because Barnsley, just like QPR did right at the death on Tuesday night, had a massive chance to snatch something that would have been a winner for QPR. This would have only been a draw for Barnsley, and it probably would have been a bit of an injustice if they had got a point, but they're a good team, Barnsley. They're doing really well. Valerian Ismail is doing a great job there. They'd won 10 of their last 15 games before they came here, which is since he took over. He's a coach that Daniel knows well from doing his coaching badges. And as Daniel's just said, he thinks he will win Manager of the Month for December for their form. And they look like they're heading in the right direction. They were really energetic, particularly when you consider that they were missing 4 players today, including their captain, Alex Mowat, because of COVID. Him and their backup keeper both had positive COVID tests. That meant 2 of their other players have had to isolate as well. So that obviously didn't help them very much going into this one, but their energy was good. They were really organised. They're trying to play football. This was, we've seen quite a few games here, haven't we, where teams have come and sort of parked the bus. Maybe that's a little bit too harsh, but certainly set up very defensively. You look at what Derby when they came here, Birmingham definitely, Wickham understandably. There's been a lot of games where it's been Norwich just having to try and pick the lock, find a way through a solid defence. And although they played a 3-4-3, so they have got a solid base to build from, they weren't just totally playing long ball football, direct football. They're a good team, and this is a really satisfying win for Norwich overall. But settled by a moment of quality, by a moment of definitely Premier League quality, probably will end up being goal of the season. So right at the top of the video, I'll say that man of the match has got to be Emi Buendia, because he's the man that made the difference in this game. Let us know in the comments whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter /Periscope. And our producer Tony is in the background, can flash up your comments along the bottom of the video. But it's got to go to Buendia for me, because this is just, he scored some great goals for Norwich, hasn't he? The one at Bristol City was good earlier this season with that lovely control, but this was just an absolute peach. Probably, if there are Premier League clubs looking at circling for the January transfer window, which opened today, that's going to have stuck some high profile value on him, because this was beautiful. It's Kenny McLean, long pass from basically on halfway, and Buendia takes it on the turn, first time, volleys it under the keeper. It's a sensational goal, and will certainly be up there for Norwich's goal of the season. It will probably be up there for Championship goal of the season. It was just gorgeous. I only sort of caught the McLean pass out of the corner of my eye, because obviously we're doing live updates and stuff at pinkham.com while the game's going on. But once you hear it thumped, you're like, oh, where's this going? No way he's going to hit it. He certainly did. And that's the one that decided. It should have been more comfortable yet again, but I'll come back round to that. The big issue at the start of the game was Tim Krul was back. Of course, that situation's evolved this week. Mark McGovern went off at half-time on Tuesday. Daniel Barden played the second half, and McGovern's probably going to miss the majority of the rest of the season with a hamstring tendon injury, which sounds painful for a 36-year-old in particular. And Daniel has now spoken of they will probably look to bring in another keeper. So we'll see how that one evolves. But Krul came back, and immediately, with the caveat that we are back behind closed doors. There is no fans in here, but he's so vocal, isn't he? Such a big leader, and you could hear him throughout. And it's not that McGovern didn't communicate, but Tim is loud and he's confident and he will tell everyone what to do. There's no pushing around Tim Krul, and that obviously has an effect on the outfield players, doesn't it? It gives that organisation, that leadership, that confidence to the team. So that was massive. Daniel also decided to bring Ben Gibson back in place of Christoph Zimmermann, which, Zimbo had a couple of dodgy moments against QPR on Tuesday, but I think overall he's done a pretty decent job in the recent games. But it just feels, purely on basic terms, a slightly better balanced centre-back pairing of him and Hanley, because it's a left footer and a right footer. Zimmermann hasn't done a great deal wrong. He's a popular guy among Norwich fans, and he is a good player at this level when he's on form. But that partnership just seems to have at the edge at the moment. And I wouldn't say it was a drastic upgrade or anything today, but Gibson's passing definitely was noticeable at times, and he contributed to attacks. So I think they're probably just about the first choice pairing at the moment, but I'm sure Zimmermann will come back into things. He's still got an important role to play, including in the background. He's clearly one of the leaders in this group, isn't he? So by no means is it going to be writing him off. Shemet Poheta did come back in injury time as well, substitute appearance, so that's him back. You would have thought that he's probably in the running for a start against Coventry in the FA Cup next Saturday now. It's a little bit of a breather from the league, so that's why it probably adds even more importance to Norwich re-establishing that little bit of a cushion at the top of the table as we take a breather for a couple of weeks from Championship action. Although I think a couple of those games in hand may be played. Bournemouth have got one against Millwall, which I think might be in either this midweek or the one to follow, but certainly a 2-week breather for Norwich before they go to Cardiff. Man of the match, I said Buendia already. And in terms of ratings, Buendia, I'll give him an 8, topped up purely by that goal because it was so beautiful, but just some of the touches and the control and just that little bit of magic that he's got. He just was the class player on the pitch, worked really hard on the majority. There was a couple of early moments where he didn't track back, and that man Krul made sure that he didn't do it again. Gave him a real roasting, but Emmy was sort of rubbing his head a bit and saying, I've taken an elbow there, but still Krul wasn't happy with the way that he tracked back. Him, but also skipping McLean. I think McLean again, this is ever since he's returned from injury, signed that contract at the end of last year as well. He's just looked really on it. He just, him and Skip have a nice balance again to it, through that spine of the team. And he's got the assist for the goal, just tenacious, winning those headers, but his use of the ball has been really good. And he just looks really focused at the moment. So him and Skip, I thought were really good today, solid and contributed going forward and in attack. So, and in defence. So I'll give them both an 8. And I will give Krul an 8, maybe a slightly generous 8, because he wasn't really busy, didn't have loads of really important saves to make, but he got through a lot of work. He used all of his experience. You could see with his kicking, because I have to admit, every time there was a kick, and there were plenty of them to be had, because that's how Norwich play, I was a little bit nervous. He's just come back from from a thigh injury, which kept him out for 9 games. He's possibly come back just a little bit earlier than they'd have liked. I think they were hoping to hang on with McGovern until the Coventry game, and that was seen as sort of the perfect way to ease him back in with a full week's training. But he knows his body down. He's 32-year-old, experienced international, and he just kept things sensible, really. There was a couple of times where his kicks went astray, but you could see he wasn't smashing through the ball when he was clearing it. He was just nice and controlled, settled everything down, and just that calming influence. So maybe a slightly generous 8, but I don't think anyone's going to be complaining with that. Otherwise, I'll go Gibson, Sorensen, Campwell. I'll give them all a 7. Campwell, probably maybe slightly controversial, because he was probably the man that should have made this more comfortable, but he was getting those chances. He was lively. It just didn't quite come off for him today. He ended up being quite frustrated. So he's probably just into a 7. And then likewise, only just dipping into a 6. I'll go Aarons, Pukki, Vrancic and Hanley. But this is a good, solid performance. So I don't want that to come across as particularly negative. They're just ratings. But 67% of possession, 11 shots, 6 of them on target to Barnsley's 8 and 2 on target. And as I say, another really entertaining game. Barnsley hit the crossbar in the 11th minute through Styles, their left wing back. That was a sort of fortuitous bounce as Hanley challenged their striker Woodrow, seized on it really well, beat Krul with the shot, and it was against the crossbar towards the top right corner. Pukki had one cleared off the line after that was a nice pass from Vrancic, and he'd beaten the keeper, but Britton got back on the line to clear and make sure it didn't go in. McLean sent Cantwell through 5 minutes before half-time, and Todd was trying to get it onto his right foot for the shot when he probably should have just pulled the trigger. Eventually gets sort of swallowed up by the recovering defence. And then just before half time as well, Corley Woodrow, their top scorer, they attack from the left. The ball gets to him on the edge of the D. Hanley got himself in a bit of a muddle in the build-up, dragged the shot beyond the far post. Max Aaron's chucking himself in front to try and block the shot. So it was 0-0 at half time, but there were chances in it. As I say, good tempo throughout, good game, two good teams. But again, a bit similar to Tuesday night, Norwich had the chances in the second half that this should have again been a more comprehensive win, a more comfortable win, and a late chance as there was shouldn't have been such a sort of heart stopper. So 47th minute, it's Buendia, lovely play. Norwich in a bit of a muddle in defence. Buendia helps out and then builds the attack. Lovely pass through to Cantwell, who squares across to Pukki, and his shot is saved. Probably should have been doing better, to be honest, with the opportunity. Jakob Sorensen shot straight at Walton, the keeper, in the 57th minute, and then that Buendia goal, his 7th of the season already. He scored 8 in 2018-19 when. How much was he raved about for that season? And he's already got 7 in about half the games, I think. And off the top now, I think it's 6 assists as well, isn't it? So his stats are really racking up, and he might end up getting towards the sort of levels that Maddison got in the season before that, which of course saw him get the big move. So it could. We'll see. What could make January nervous. We all know it's going to take a big offer for Norwich to sell him this January. But he wants to be in the Premier League. So if it's one of the big boys, then who knows? A situation may emerge. But this is certainly going to top up his profile nicely. That's probably the almost a negative from that wonderful goal for Norwich fans, that they'll be worried that that's going to get played over and over again on Sky Sports News and might just persuade a scout or a head coach to have a closer look at Emmy, because Norwich fans all know what he's capable of course. 74th minute, Vrancic plays a lovely pass. Pukki's clean through, but then rather than chip the keeper, he sees Cantwell, a bit like that disallowed goal against QPR, squares across the box, but he just put too much on the cross essentially, and Cantwell couldn't control it and calm things down to turn into an empty net, and that was sort of the big opportunity to make it 2-0 go away. Similar chance, Pukki setting up Cantwell again, but on the other side, on the right side of the box. Cantwell gets decent contact this time, fires across the keeper towards the bottom left corner, but the keeper gets down well to make the save. Jordan Hugill did come on alongside Boheta late on. I think it was 89th minute they came on, and he did get the ball in the back of the net, but it was offside. Looked the right decision. I haven't seen a replay of it yet, but Tetty just seemed to hesitate a little bit as he played the ball over the top, looped Hugill through, and he chipped the keeper. Ball went in, but the offside flag was already up by that point. And then that big chance, as I said, 4th minute, and Daniel Farker went pretty mad after it. But I think just Max Aaron didn't have the height or maybe the energy to get up fully for a ball, and ended up nodding it on towards Styles, their left wing back, and he squares it across the box, open goal, begging for somebody to turn it in, and it was their centre-back Helik sliding in at the back post, and he just couldn't make proper contact with it, and it slipped away, and their manager Valerian Ismail was on the pitch, head in hands, just could not believe it. That would have been a massive moment for them, of course, here against the leaders, let's not forget. I talked about it a bit in the updates of opinion.com during the game, that there was a lot more negativity around than I expected after the last 2 games, which is ridiculous when you think about the great position Norwich are in this of all seasons. I guess some people, football is when you vent, isn't it? It's when you get the moans off your chest, the moans and groans. And for some people, it was like, oh, they've slipped up a little bit. Let's get the moans out, and it just sort of all came pouring out. Which there's been far more negativity around about those 2 results. Where Norwich, it's not like they were bad in either game against Watford or QPR. So. This just keeps everything ticking along nicely and sticks the moaners back in their box a little bit. Because if you're moaning about this situation, as I say, in this season, which isn't like any other season, then I think you need to have a word with yourself, really, because which sane Norwich fan wouldn't have absolutely snatched the hand off that offered this at the start of this season on the back of 10 successive defeats at the end of last season? I think you'd need your head checked if you wouldn't have taken that position. They are in a great position. Nothing is certain, of course, but they are in a great position to chase promotion from here, to keep building. And if the injuries keep clearing up in the way that they do, they've got so many options too. That Coventry game next week comes at a really good time for a lot of people. Krul will have to see. They may just decide, let's give him that time to rest. Daniel Barden's maybe earned another opportunity in the Cup because he did pretty well in that second half, didn't he? But you've got Dowell, maybe Stevenman, Hernandez. It sounds like it might come a little bit too early for Byram and Eder. They're probably going to be later in the month. Byram, sounds like they're going to be very careful with him. Kintyre is another one. Zimmerman is now one who will want to come in. There's plenty of players who this is going to come at a good time at. Hugill, Poeta. So we can sort of predict the team. There's certainly some players who need a good rest. Your Hanleys, your Pookies, who have played a lot of football, haven't they, so far this season? Buendia. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting game, but a totally different game. It's almost going to feel like a reserve game, isn't it? Because the FA Cup does not matter this season. Norwich are not chasing Wembley or anything. The total focus is on the Championship promotion push, so it's just what they can use that for. And if they go out, no worries. If they go through, it will again be sort of the shadow squad or the players that need minutes. But yeah, 7th clean sheet of the season, halfway point of the season, 4 points clear at the top, 6 points clear of third, a 1-0 win. That'll do nicely. Thanks very much for watching. Head over to pinker.com for all the analysis and reaction from the game. And we will see you here again next Saturday against Coventry. Remember, it's a lunchtime.